Are you suffering from pain and stiffness in your lower back and you're wondering whether or not it's due to arthritis? Well, if that's you, we're going to answer your questions today. My name is Will Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties Specialist Physio here at HT Physio in Farnham. And today we're going to be talking about low back arthritis symptoms. Now, before we cover what the symptoms are, I want to just show you a little bit about what arthritis in the low back is and how it happens. So to help me explain, I've got my spine model here, and you can see on the model here that we have a number of different things that make up our spines. So this is the pelvis, which is around your hips area. Then we have these white things here, which are the bones that make up the spine, and these are called vertebrae. Now the bones are joined to each other by something we call a facet joint. So you have a facet joint which joins each one of the vertebra to the one above it and the one below it, and they go all the way up the spine, right up to the top of the neck. Now in the middle of these vertebrae, between them we have something called the discs, and these are tough discs that are made of collagen, so a tough fibre, and inside they have a fluid centre. And through a combination of the discs being flexible and the facet joints being able to bend, extend and twist, we're able to move our spines, so they help us to remain flexible. Now, arthritis is a process that occurs as we age, and arthritis is basically just a term that's used to describe the aging changes which cause deterioration in the quality of the joints. Now, one very important thing to note before we go any further is that arthritis is not always painful. For some people, arthritis doesn't hurt at all, and they can have really severe arthritis without any symptoms. So why it affects some people and not others, we don't fully understand. There are some theories which I won't go into right now. But the important thing to note is that arthritis happens to everyone. Anyone over the age of about 40, 45 has some evidence of arthritic changes on an X-ray or an MRI. So these changes are very normal and they don't always lead to pain. But when we're talking about changes, what we're really talking about when it comes to low back arthritis is thinning of the discs. So these here lose height, which can often cause a bit of stiffness. And at the back of the spine, the facet joints, they have a lovely layer of cartilage between them, and that cartilage starts to get thin. So they become stiff as well. So that's what we mean when we talk about arthritis. It's a normal process of aging. And some people won't have symptoms at all, but for people who do have symptoms, there are 5 main low back arthritis symptoms. Let's talk about them one by one. So the first and probably most common symptom for people with low back arthritis is early morning stiffness in the spine. And this typically feels like a very stiff, achy, sore lower back, especially when you're just getting up from having been laid down all night. And it can often take half an hour, 15 minutes to start to get it moving and for it to warm up again. And as that time passes on, the symptoms tend to improve as you start to get going. So that's the first and most common symptom of low back arthritis. The second common symptom of low back arthritis is general stiffness in the spine, especially when doing something called extension. And extension is when we lean back. So many people with arthritis, we think of it as just being stiffness all through the spine, but if we want to be more accurate, it's actually more to do with stiffness when being upright and bending back. So this is an extension movement, and people who have quite severe arthritis in their spine, they can rarely bend back at all. And they often can look like they can bend back, but really they're just using their hips and the spine is not moving at all. So stiffness in extension, not being able to lean back using your spine, that is another symptom or a sign of low back arthritis. The third symptom for low back arthritis is an achy pain that tends to affect you during periods when you've rested for a long time and then you start to get moving again. And we call this start-up pain. So if you find that your back is worse after you've been sitting for half an hour to an hour, then you go to get up and it feels really achy and stiff, very similar to how it does in the morning, this is another sign of low back arthritis. There are ways that we can help it, but it's a very common problem. It's the one that people mostly complain to me about when they come to see me about this kind of arthritis, and we call it start-up pain. The fourth symptom from people who have low back arthritis is often trouble walking. Now, people with low back arthritis, they actually often find that walking helps, but many of them will find that if they keep walking, then they start to get achiness in the spine, and in severe cases they'll start to get aching down the legs as well, and we call this spinal stenosis, and this is a more advanced form of low back arthritis. Now, the important thing to remember is if you have low back arthritis, you should continue to walk, especially if you're feeling very stiff if you rest for long periods of time, because the walking does excellent things for your muscle strength in your legs. It keeps you flexible, it keeps the spine healthy, and it encourages the body to actually start to regenerate new cartilage, even for people who are on the older end of the spectrum. So walking is very, very important, but sometimes one of the symptoms is that walking can become uncomfortable if you push it that bit too far. And then the final symptom I'm going to show you about today to do with people who have low back arthritis is something called a flat back posture. And this is just something that you might notice if you look at yourself sideways on in the mirror. So let me get my spine model again. So in a normal posture, we have two major curves in the spine. We have this one here, which is like a C shape, and then we have another one here, which is like a C shape in the opposite direction. So we won't worry too much about this part. But in people who have arthritis in the lower back, we find that that C shape tends to flatten out. So they have what we call a flat back at the bottom. We call this a flat back posture. And one of the reasons it occurs is because someone with arthritis doesn't like this movement, extension. So their body will naturally take them to the opposite, which is what we call flexion, and that leaves them with a very flat lower back. So if you ask your partner whether, as they look at you like this, your back looks very flat and it doesn't have a natural curve to it, that can be another sign. Now, the most important thing to note about low back arthritis is that even though we can't fix the underlying changes to the cartilage, we can usually improve the symptoms. There's a large chapter in my book all about this problem, and my book is called Thriving Beyond 50. It has lots of tips for dealing with problems like this, including low back arthritis. So if you're suffering, know first of all that there is help out there. There's good information like we can find in the book, which can help you. And if you've been suffering for a while, it might be worth speaking to a local physio or a doctor to see if you can get some help from someone who knows how to treat it. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I would love it if you subscribed to the channel. It does really help me reach more people, and you can subscribe using the button below. If you like the video as well and share it with your friends, I'd be immensely grateful. And thank you again for joining me. I look forward to speaking to you on the next video.